Welcome, one and all, to the Cosmic Comic Nation, powered by Comic Con Radio. I'm your host, Tom Tormey, and my next guest is a native of Montgomery, Alabama, and is currently a fine arts student at Alabama State University. On top of being a full time student, he's currently pursuing his lifelong passion as a writer and an artist. His original comic, All Star, book number one, Protect and Serve, about a superhero who fights against injustice in all its forms with a little divine intervention, is currently available now. And it is my pleasure to welcome Ronald Martin to the Cosmic Comic Nation. Ronald, thank you very much for being
Thank
here.
you for having me. I appreciate you
Oh,
having me. Thank you.
no, it's my pleasure. I've been following your account. I've been following you getting this book out to the people, and it's an incredible journey. And I'm 44 years old, and I know that you're currently enrolled in Alabama State University. So uh, I'm really in awe of you because when I was your age, the internet had just kind of come to school, and within a few short
Hmm.
months, I almost got everyone in my fraternity expelled, and it was not a good time. I was not using it well, let's say. Um,
Gotcha.
you on the other hand, yeah, well, you on the other hand, live and learn. I'm a much different person now. You on the other hand, you're using it to create, bring about awareness of injustice, and fund and get your project out to people. How did this all come about?
So it all started when I was a senior in high school, and I always wanted to. Well, actually, I take that back. So it started when I was a kid. I've always wanted to, make comics, and I've always been fascinated with superheroes. But as I've gotten older, my talent, my skill, had progressed to a certain level, and I decided to take it seriously. And when I was a senior in high school, a lot of the George Floyd protests and a lot of uh, different things that were going on in terms of civil unrest in this country had inspired me to make a comic book because I naturally have a, I guess, a heart for activism, but I'm kind of shy and timid, so I use my artwork to speak for me. But then at the same time, I'm a huge comic book fan, so I wanted to mesh and kind of blend the two, uh, social justice and also um, comic books because I feel like superheroes are about justice, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I had to, bridge that gap. But that's kind of how it started.
And how's the reception been amongst people who are following you and people who are keeping up with All Star? How has the reception been to
Mm.
the comic itself?
Well, I haven't had any pushback yet, but for the most part, most of the responses are pretty good. People are, they like the story and they're ready for book two. So I'm very excited that a lot of people are very interested in and getting connected and familiar with this character because it took me like 3 years to make it. So it's I'm actually really excited that people are actually liking it. So
Oh, that's great, and I'm glad that you haven't got any pushback because I can't tell you how many times I see people who really don't understand superheroes or the medium in general, and
mhm,
they'll critique a comic or an issue or a writer or an artist
mhm,
for bringing in activism into the book. But yet, I mean, really, since the earliest publication of superheroes, activism has been central to it. At certain points, just like any medium, those its original purpose has waned and gone away and come back.
right,
But I'm glad that you are keeping it in the book. Um, and I'm glad that the reception has been positive too, because if there's a time where we need uh, that freedom of speech in the comic books, now's the time. So I'm glad
right.
you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, tell us about All Star himself, the character. What
Mhm.
makes him super?
So originally, well, as a regular man, he's a father and a husband, but he's also a retired Marine. So he kind of has that background. Marines are very, you know, battle hardened and stuff like that. So I wanted to give him give him that. He's also a disabled Marine. So in the book, he actually uh, he's what's the word? He doesn't
He
have a
looked,
leg.
right. I think he looked like he had his was it right leg amputated.
He had his leg amputated, so he's an amputee, and he's kind of already experienced the harshness of war, but he's also experiencing another type of conflict with um, police brutality, and so he loses his son, and so all these different things kind of test him mentally, and so it kind of just shows you what type of man he is, and he doesn't let these things stop him from doing good and being a good person, and so that's showing the human aspect of him. But in terms of his powers, he gets his powers from this crystal, and it comes from space, and it's kind of mysterious right now, and I plan on fleshing out the concept behind the crystal, but that gives him his powers. That's the source of his powers, and he's able to get his leg back, and he has super strength, he has flight, invulnerability. He has this energy, like this blue aura that kind of surrounds him and stuff like that. But it's a lot that goes into the character that I'm really excited to share and to explain in the future in terms of, like, I guess, the depths of his powers and what he's capable of.
Right.
But
I guess all for book two, right? All
right, right,
as time goes on, flesh out the origin story, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it's great to leave that aura of mystery. I think that really keeps people interested.
mm-hmm.
It's a solid book, and it looks like a lot of fun. And I'm glad. I hope you're having as much fun making it as the book itself shows. But sometimes
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur to say the least, and sometimes that's not easy. Have you experienced any difficulties in getting your project off the ground? And if so, how'd you overcome those obstacles?
So for me, initially when I was making the book, I started with my Kickstarter, and I had no clue how to do a Kickstarter, and that was pretty tough trying to spread the word out, and pre Kickstarter launch and all these different things and stuff like that. As a creator, as a creative, it's kind of like you just want to make cool stuff, but
Right.
then I put on a different hat, and that's like the business aspect of it, the entrepreneurial aspect of it, and I had to kind of go into a different world after making the book, and so it was a crazy switch. But after using YouTube and talking to different people that I already had projects, I was able to get a lot of information that I needed to move forward. So I guess with Kickstarter, I didn't realize that sometimes you have to have realistic goals, and so I set a pretty high goal for myself, and I shot for like $6,000, but I had high expectations for my book. But had I stayed like at what 2,000, I probably would have made my Kickstarter goal. But you learn through trial and error, and I found an alternative, and that ended up being the website Lulu, and so that's kind of how I kind of moved forward with making my book. And I didn't even know about
Right.
dimensions. Like I'm such a noob at this. I kind of just like I didn't even know about dimensions, and I was struggling with, like, trying to
As in
get
the
my book off
dimensions,
with it.
as in the dimensions of the book, the size and shape.
Yeah, 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 the
Mhm.
metrics of the book and stuff like that.
Right.
So I learned how to do that, and I just use YouTube as my guide. If I didn't have an answer for it, I just YouTubed it. But
And you've turned to other people on social media who are in a similar
mm,
situation? Because I've noticed over the last few years, pre post COVID, I should say, really, or in the time
mm,
of COVID, that many creative people such as yourself and young entrepreneurs have turned to social media to
mhm,
service their own kind of self promotion. I met a man, Walter Lovett. He produces a book called The Watcher, and it's a
mm,
great series. And his story is similar to your own, where he did have the difficulties publishing, and I think he
mhm,
turned to self publishing. I'm pretty sure, uh, but
mm,
he also found solace in knowing that other creators were out there with the same struggles, same difficulties, and able to
mhm,
turn to them and find people who have helped who've overcome those difficulties. How
right.
about that? Have you found anybody on social media that has been uh, open to helping? Because sometimes they're a little
Yeah.
wary. They see you
Some
as
people
kind
like
of
to gatekeep too.
yeah, yeah, great, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've had some help and some advice from Godhood Comics. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No, but I'll definitely check him out.
Ty- Tyler Martin. He's really good. Brian Covington. He's the writer of Between Magic and Dreams. He's really talented, but he's kind of just been helping me out and guiding me through my journey of being a self publisher. There's lots of different people. Um,
Well,
yeah,
that's good that you have that support. Yeah, gatekeeping is. I had to learn that term a few years ago. I had never heard of it.
yeah.
I wasn't aware, and you know what? I still don't really get it. I don't understand why. I'm a rising tide rises. Makes. Oh God, I'm screwing that expression. But rising tide rises all the boats, something like that. But
Mhm.
if helping you helps me, so uh,
Right.
I don't get the idea. I'm sorry that you've experienced that. I wish that kind of mentality would go away. But you've progressed so far in the last few years, not only in your artistic ability, but in the last few months alone, you've been featured in Gumtown magazine. You were the center of an expose at ASU's website.
Mhm.
Your book is now available on Barnes and Nobles and Amazon and many other retailers. You even had your own segment, news segment on WSFA 12 in Alabama. Uh, I
Right.
mean, I'm sure you may not have saw yourself in this position 4 years ago. Do you have a 4 year, 5 year plan for where you see yourself next?
So I guess in the next 5 years, I would love to have had my character kind of be established in the minds of people, and maybe have like a few more books under my belt and a successful publication, because I do want to be a self publisher,
Right.
and maybe a few collaborations with other creators,
Okay.
um, and just building, like having my character kind of be a staple, and people like being familiar with him and being familiar with me as an artist and as a writer. Like those are some things that I would love to kind of grow. Those things that I would like to see grow. And so yeah, it's lots of different possibilities for this character, and for my publication, and for me. So I just want to be able to see just things grow naturally. Like I'm kind of just like focused on the present, and I have goals, but it's like, as long as I'm worried about the present, I'm kind of just like, I'm not really pressured. I'm not really stressing about
That's good.
you know just how things are going to turn out, as long as I'm working on my projects now and constantly moving. Then I'll be
Oh
good.
yeah. No, no. I could see it. I could see that's very level ahead of you. That's very that's good. That's good to keep that pressure off yourself. But if you did
Mm,
get a chance to collaborate with other people, what would you probably say is the most time consuming aspect of the creative process? Is it the writing? Is it the art?
mm.
Is it the coloring? What? Because I know you're handling all of it, um,
Yeah, yeah,
and that can be quite a lot. And it's Radical Publishing, correct?
yeah. Well, it's Radical Comics.
Radical Comics.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you're handling a lot. You're doing the business side, the publishing side. You're self taught in many of these aspects.
Mhm.
Uh, if you could and you were going to collaborate, what
Mhm.
aspect would you really of all of this would you want that collaboration process to be a part of?
Um, when you say collaborate my process, you mean like in terms of like
If,
um
yeah, if you had someone coming on to Radical Comics and
mhm.
uh, what branch? The writing, the art, the
uh,
oh,
I would say that for me, I think it's because for me, it's like, as an artist, I know how I want things to look.
hmm
And so it's kind of tough saying, well, I want them to be coloring. But at the same time, it's like that would take so much of the weight off of,
right,
my workload that I already have to do. So if I did have colorists and stuff like that, that would really help with the workload, because, I can just do the pencils, and, writing is comes fairly easy to me. So
that's good.
um, those are the things that would be easy. But I think coloring probably takes the most time, because it's like I have to go back and color all the pages and stuff, and it's
Right.
fun, but it can be time consuming. So
Uh, so I've had the pleasure of working with middle schoolers really for the last 23 years, and this week
mm,
I'm kind of winding down, and going into a new position. But I've always told my students to follow their passion, and it's great to see
mhm.
someone, a young entrepreneur like yourself, really living their passion. Is there any advice that you might be able to give to my students that you'd wish somebody had given to you?
Yeah. So for me, growing up, I feel like I've always kind of been like, I kind of always stood out. And as an artist, I've always kind of had a chip on my shoulder. Like I always wanted to prove myself because, the whole starving artist thing. And, maybe your parents kind of, were like, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. And you're kind of just like, well, no, like I want to do this. It's like if you have a passion for something, you're genuinely passionate about it. You have to go full throttle. You have to have faith and that's going to be the thing that you want to do. It's all or nothing. I mean, if you genuinely love something and you want to see it grow, you have to, you know, tackle it head on and don't let other people, tell you otherwise. I mean, that it sounds cliche, but that's really true. Like for me, most of my life had been drawing. I would get in trouble in class because of maybe I wasn't paying attention. I'd be doodling in my notebook, and I'm supposed to be paying attention to my math class. And I've always kind of had like people tell me, you might not make that much money doing what you do. So instead of focusing on the negatives and the things that have happened in my life, I kind of just kept going and tackling it, full force and giving it 100%. When you give things 100% and you give them, 100% of your focus, normally, it grows, especially if you love it. So you
Right.
can't give up. You can't let people discourage you. And for me, I've always wanted to be that type of person that that accomplished their dreams. I didn't want to be the person that's like, oh, I used to do this, or I had this project and I didn't finish it. So that was always my driving force,
Hmm.
So
No, that's
yeah,
solid.
that's good advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is solid advice. And talking about projects that you're starting and hopefully, and definitely finishing. Um,
Mhm.
so book one is out. Book one is
Right.
available. Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, uh, All Star. Book one is out.
hmm
Has there been any motions for a book two, or are
hmm
you starting to maybe expand into other books? Any plans so far?
So that's kind of the thing that I've been wrestling with right now. Like I have other characters that I would like to put out there, but I did work on a few pages for book two, so I think I might just go ahead and do book two.
Right.
And maybe after book two, I introduce a new character, or maybe I, have like a cliffhanger that segues into another character's story. Who knows?
Right. Right.
So kind of just like what I'm dealing with right now. But yeah, I have worked on a few pages for book two, so that's kind of I think that's the direction I'm headed in right now.
You mentioned earlier that from a young age, at 4, kind of
hmm
superheroes were an inspiration from you. Are there any
hmm
particular superheroes that you always you kind of resonated with as you grew up?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was kind of like my first character that I was introduced to was Spider-Man.
Hmm.
And so I watched a lot of the Sam Raimi movies growing up, and then that kind of introduced me just to the character and just to the Marvel material as a whole. And that's kind of how I got into the comics and stuff. And I watched the cartoons, and so Spider Man was like the first character I was exposed to, and then eventually I learned about Superman, and then I learned about the Justice League and just DC, and it kind of just like branched off into like this big love for comic books. And so I would say maybe my favorite characters right now been Captain America, Superman, Spider Man was like my first character that I was introduced to.
Hmm.
Um, who else?
Good
There's
choices.
there-
Good choice.
there's a whole bunch of other characters. Um, yeah,
So
it's a lot of characters.
I like to see that earlier you had mentioned that you were kind of timid and that you found yourself through the art and through writing. And
hmm
I can see that aspect of Spider-Man resonating with you in that,
hmm
I always, one of the cool things about Spider-Man is that when he puts that mask on, it's always word bubbles. When he's
Right,
Peter Parker, it used to be just the thought bubbles because he didn't
right,
have that ability within him to be an extrovert. He was
right.
an introverted character, but Spider-Man was definitely an extrovert. Always with the quips, always with the witty comments, and I guess that the mask allowed him to become or show who he truly was. And I guess
hmm
similarly doing that through your art.
right.
So, uh, so with all these things going on, uh, how on the college campus itself, they
hmm
have they been. I'm sure you have friends and family, but it seems like the college Alabama State University is also supportive of your endeavors. How's that reception been on the campus?
Yeah, it's been really great. Like, I've just been met with so much love and support. And the fact that I'm even doing this is kind of like it's rare for them. And so they wanted to kind of nurture me and, help me grow. And yeah, it's like, they've never seen someone, be interested in comics before. My professor, Professor Nathaniel Allen, he's also a comic book lover as well. So he's kind of just been, you know, helping me grow and different things and just trying to be that, support system for me. And so, yeah, it's just been really a really great experience. And, they've, put my work out there. They put me out there and kind of showcase my talents and, my project and stuff like that. So they've been really supportive and I I really appreciate it.
Are you reciprocating? Are you giving back in the same token?
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, in terms of giving back, it's kind of like with my peers, helping out with my peers, and any advice that they need or want. I'm always there,
That's
and
great.
with the arts department, I'm also a part of the arts department as well, and I also work for the school's newspaper. So I'm the cartoonist for the newspaper, so I produce cartoons every week for the Hornet Tribune. So it's reciprocal. I would say
Okay,
it's pretty reciprocal.
that's good. That's good. That's a good
Yeah.
relationship to have. Because I don't. I mean, as somebody who went to college
Hmm.
way more than 20 years ago, that support for getting into the world of comic books just was not there. I wrote my thesis on my master's thesis on Superman, and I can't tell you how many times my advisor tried to talk me out of it. So I'm glad that people are.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm glad they're supporting you. That's good to see that so much has changed. So I have never met your professor, but I like the professor already supporting you, and that's very cool.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that kind of support, and I'm glad you're reciprocating, and I'm glad you're giving back. But I also just uh, in the interviews I've seen with you, uh, you do seem like uh, your passion is something that you want
Mhm,
to use to inspire others. So that is another amazing thing to hear. Uh, in terms of, we've both expressed our passion for superheroes. Uh, I grew up with superheroes, and I'm glad you did too. And superheroes are
mhm,
your thing; it's my thing as well. And I'm a
mhm,
sucker for a good crossover. So I was wondering if I could give you a number of superheroes, and you tell me if All Star would team up with them. Tell me if it's a no or a go, and maybe even elaborate on what you might think it might be like for All Star to team up with this character. So,
right.
you good with that? Ready?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I'll go with number one. Uh, and you had mentioned your love of him early, so I'll say All Star and Captain America. What would that team up look like, or if it were to happen?
Oh yeah, that'd be a nice team up. I feel like whenever superheroes team up, there's always some sort of conflict. They fight in the beginning, but I think Steve and All Star would probably get along and have similar, you know, just similar thought. And I think yeah, they would just get along and they team up and maybe have a little, quippy banter and stuff like that, and talk about how they're both, American themed and stuff like that in terms of
Right.
uniform, and um, maybe voice their opinions on how what they think about America now and how they feel about their country,
Oh, I'm
and
glad you said
both
that.
both of them are veterans as well, so
Yeah. Oh,
that's kind of
good
yeah,
angle.
that they would get along. I think they would
Yeah.
get along.
No, I'm glad you talked about that because with All Star, you're using the platform to point out injustice that goes on throughout our country, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes you might look at a character like Captain America that essentially looks like a personified flag, and
Mm-hmm.
but there is a depth to the character where he's not just a mindless automaton; that he is aware and preventative.
Right.
So that's good. I think that would make for a great team up. Let's say if All Star, so let's move on to the second one. If All Star got transported into the 21st century, I believe, I was, and he had to team up with a legion of superheroes. How do you think that would go?
Oh, he teamed up. That would be pretty interesting. Uh, I think him adjusting just to the time period would be a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
And just the different characters like Brainiac and maybe Supergirl will be there because she was a part of the Legion at some point,
Yeah,
or just the various different characters. I think he would get along with. He's not a very problematic uh, personality or character. He's a good guy, so I think he would get along with a lot of the people, and he would want to help out any way he could. So I think that would be a really cool team up too, and just seeing how he's adjusting to the time period, I think that would throw him off.
yeah, right. Kind of a hardened, old school veteran tossed into
Yeah,
the future. Absolutely. How
yeah.
about All Star and The Dark Knight? How about All Star and Batman?
Ooh, yeah. I think with All Star and Batman, I think they would get along because had they say if they were to get personal and they maybe All Star found out that Batman was Bruce Wayne, they could relate to the the tragedy aspect in their character, the loss, the grieving, and so I think All Star would relate to Batman because he's like, well, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're still kind of living out that pain of losing your parents, and you don't want other kids to experience that as well. I'm doing the same thing with myself, and I don't want parents to lose their child, from the same thing that I lost my kid from. And so it's kind of like they would probably get along in terms of you know why they don their costumes and stuff like that, and what they stand for. I think maybe initially also would kind of be like, you know Batman's methods are a little, Batman can be rough sometimes. So I think maybe they would bump heads in the beginning, but uh, then eventually they
Very cool.
probably get along.
And I'll toss out one last one that we probably will never see, and it's probably for the best. All Star and Howard the Duck.
Ooh, All Star and Howard the Duck. I think that would be pretty funny. I think the fact that it's a talking duck, he would just be, just
An
his
average.
mind would be blown. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, you have superpowers, so I mean, that's not the weirdest thing and experience. So you kind of just have to accept it. Like there's a talking duck. So
Right.
I think that would be a pretty cool crossover too. Maybe at first you'd kind of be serious with him, and then you know
And
he
after the
he would
bar.
probably, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Ronnie, where could and I hope my students are watching this. I hope a lot of people are watching.
Hmm.
And if people want to know more about All Star, they want to know more about Radical Comics. Where can people find you to contact you and or just really follow your amazing progress?
Gotcha. So right now I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on TikTok, and my username is Ronnie Creates, and my Radical Comics social media is also on Instagram as well. You just type in Radical Comics, but Radical Comics with a K.
Gotcha.
So that's how you find it. And the link to my book is going to be in both my Radical Comics social media on Instagram. The link to my book is on there on that account, and it's also on my Ronnie Creates account. So if you want to read the book, you can get the digital copy, you can get the physical copy, and yeah, and
Very
you
cool.
can kind of read up on my character and see what you think about my character and check them out. So,
And be sure. Oh, I'm sure they'll fall in love with it. It's a great book, and you're a great creator, and it's great to see how quickly, as you mentioned, like in 3 years, 4 years time, how quickly you've risen and how much your work has progressed. And I can't wait to see what the next 3, 4 years and beyond brings for you. For you,
mm,
All Star, Radical Comics, and any of the other characters that you create. You're doing a great job.
yeah,
It's cool to see, and I've been following you for a while, and I do like what you've been putting out, so it's very cool. But
thanks.
oh, no problem. My friend, thank you very much, Ronnie. Thanks for being here, and I hope
Thanks for
that.
having me.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. My pleasure. I hope to have you again in the future. So when book two comes out, definitely come on, or any of the other
Gotcha.
other projects that you have coming up come out. Be
Mm,
sure stop on by, and we'd be happy to have you. Guys,
thanks.
thank you very much for being here, guys. Ronnie Creates is online on Instagram, as he said. I'm going to put all the links and everything in the bio. And I'm still Tom Tormey. This has been the Cosmic Comic Nation. And until next time, everybody, be well and stay safe. See you soon.